Welcome to Own the Chaos. The stock market is crazy and chaotic.
Crash. You son
Oh, God. Hold on. Pause.
Brad and Fat Man Zoom are here to help you own it.
They were targeting Wall Street when they should have been targeting Capitol Hill. They should have been targeting DC. This is the same thing, and this is what people keep missing.
Taking it to the suits, being relatable and hilarious.
You bought GameStop at 400, didn't you? To the moon, baby. To the moon.
Get ready to own the chaos in 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Own the Chaos. My name is Brad. The stock market is crazy and chaotic, and I made it my mission to help you own it. And it is another crazy, wild day. It always happens. Whenever I think I don't have anything to talk about, the market gives you something to talk about. And we have that going on. So I do have the top stocks to watch for April that I think are certainly worth taking a look at, that I'm pretty sure are going to be spot on for this month and probably leading into next month as well. Maybe even the rest of the year, but we're going to get to it later on in the show. But before we get into anything, as always, folks, let me hit you guys up with the starting five. So we got Jay Chocolate. What's up, Jeff? Jeff Polnicka, another Jeff. Philip Stroh, Tiger's Edge. And I have to scroll all the way down because y'all have been having some big-ass conversations before the show starts, which I love. Keep it up. But Darren Anderson, you're also in the starting five. Thanks so much for being here first. If you missed out, it's probably because you didn't hit that notification bell. So why don't you go ahead and hit subscribe. Hit that notification bell to get notified when I go live every day at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time. And then also hit that like button on your way in the door. Guys, today's show has been brought to you by the Chaos Crew. If you guys aren't a part of the crew, hit that join button next to subscribe or go to ownthechaos.com. Each and every morning, I put out a list of stocks that I think are going to be movers in the market. If you guys want to check that out, I give a pretty in-depth fundamental analysis as well as technicals to give you a nice start to your trading day or your investing day, whatever you want to call it. I know you all are busy. I know you're all trying to go back to work. I know that you got things going on. You ain't got time for that. Let your boy help you out. Okay, hit that join button next to subscribe or go to ownthechaos.com and get your watch list for $4.99. It's $4.99 a month. You can't beat it. $4.99 a month, not $500. Okay, this isn't the big four. Okay, not going to break your arm off to get a watch list from me. So you also get access to Discord as well as all kinds of other goodies. There's options in there to become part of the private live streams that I do, as well as access to my portfolio and trade alerts and all that. If you guys want access to it, again, hit that join button next to subscribe or go to ownthechaos.com. Today is April 5th, 2022. The market is all over the place. So just to give you a perspective here right now, I'm looking at the overall indices, and I'm seeing that the S&P 500 is down around 1.5%. Selling is accelerating. It wasn't all that bad right around lunchtime, but it's getting worse. We have the Dow down almost 1%. NASDAQ's down 2.5%. Woo! Growth and tech is taking a beating today. And then we also have oil that's actually selling off as well. We're kind of hovering around that $100 a barrel mark at $100.34 for WTI crude. That's down 3%. So what the hell's going on? Why are we seeing such a big sell-off today? A lot of it revolves around what's going on with the Fed. Of course it is. So interesting turn of events. One of the biggest, I guess, or most dovish, I guess. Most dovish members of the Fed. Secretary Brainerd. What the hell's her name? Oh my God. Why has it? Governor Brainerd, Lael Brainerd. She's one of the most dovish members of the Fed. All of a sudden turned hawkish. So she talked about how they are looking to shrink the balance sheet. Quantitative tightening is what they call it. And they're looking to do that pretty quickly. Big tranches of quantitative tightening. And so that's going to shrink the balance sheet of the Fed. We already saw all this coming, maybe not to the degree that they are communicating it to us. As I told you guys on Sunday, that we were going to be expecting meeting minutes from the Fed and expectations for what's going to be happening in May. Now, no real talk about interest rates that are going to be going up. And so this really kind of was more or less revolving around the quantitative tightening. Barron's actually put out today that in effect confirmed a quick pace of rate increases this year. So she talked about a quick rate, but she didn't say about how much. She expects policy to return to a more neutral position after this year. My guess is somewhere around 2 to 2.5%, I think, by the end of the year, or maybe by going into the beginning of next year. Financial markets are now pricing in Fed rates above 2.2% by the end of 2022. Kind of in line with what I'm thinking as well. Bloomberg data shows this. So investors see a growing likelihood of 8 additional quarter point rate hikes this year. I don't know if that eight sounds like a lot. Maybe we see 1.5 point rate hike, and then everybody kind of sees how the dust settles, right? We get up to 0.75% and then kind of see how the dust settles. I'm not really subscribing to 8 rate hikes. The only reason that I say that is because I think, obviously things have not gone well with inflation. The crisis in Russia, Ukraine was not helpful on that front, especially with sanctions and that sort of thing. And that's kind of what's exacerbated this inflation issue. What's interesting, though, looking at some of the data coming in from income and all that, and wages are keeping up with inflation right now. So we haven't seen any kind of destruction of demand, and actually we're seeing an increase in demand, and we're seeing consumer spending still kind of go wild here, which is why I kind of remain bullish in effect for the remainder of the year. This doesn't mean that we're not going to have bad days. Nothing ever goes straight up, but I'm still in the camp that we will not see a recession this year. I still think that maybe it's in the cards 2023, if it even comes about. We'll see. But right now, the economy's strong, people. People are out there spending money. And is there any of you that are in the stream right now that is canceling vacation because of inflation or higher gas prices? No, I don't think so. And let me know. Maybe I'm off. If it's one person that says it, I'm not gonna take that as gospel. But if there's a healthy amount of you that are like, you know what, I'm gonna forego vacation. I know that for the last 2 years I've been pent up in my house because of COVID, but just can't do it this year because, well, high gas prices. I don't see that happening. So let me know, though. Give me an idea of what you guys are looking at. Don Fran's in the house. He said it takes a lot of fuel for my plane. So yeah. Yeah, look at this. Jeff Chow says, I'm going to Vegas, Norway, Mexico this year. Right. This isn't going to stop anybody. And so, the services side of the economy as well, 70% of the economy is run off of services, hospitality, excuse me, and all of that. So I'm not really all that concerned. We have one bad day, la-di-da, because the Fed spooking everybody. And I think this is going to be more or less being a buying opportunity. And I got 5 stocks coming up. So make sure you guys are staying tuned for that I think are actually going to be worth buying up in any environment, but particularly in this one as well. And the one that we might be going into. They're not all, your boring stocks, but there's definitely some ones that I think are compelling. I'm going to show you the charts on those as well. And that furthers my argument on why I think they're actually good, solid buys. So we'll get into that in just a second. But guys, do you recall when I talked to you yesterday about this whole Elon mess with Twitter? Somebody back me up here. Yesterday, I was practically begging Elon Musk to give us a edit button. And, I gave you 5 reasons why Elon getting into Twitter, why he bought up so much was a solid move. 2 of them have already come to fruition. Sort of. Okay. One of them definitely came into fruition. The other one is well on its way. All right. It's well on its way. One of them was that I talked to you yesterday about the very high likelihood that we would see Elon potentially becoming a board member of Twitter, which would be fantastic for the company. I think that if you have such a brilliant mind, such as Elon's, a business mind, any entrepreneur would want Elon Musk on their board of directors. Wouldn't you know it? He's on there. Elon Musk owns more Twitter than the CEO of Twitter. He owns more Twitter than anybody who is invested in it right now. And so putting him on the board, getting insights from him is going to be fantastic. And wouldn't you know it, yesterday as well, he put out a poll literally an hour. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not an hour. Couple hours after I had begged and pleaded for an edit button. here comes Elon to the rescue. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it was because he watched yesterday's live stream, even though I know he didn't, but that's okay. About the edit button. And I thought this was interesting. Let me know what you guys think about the edit button, because there is some controversy here as far as that's concerned, because there's a lot of people that are worried that if you do end up putting on an edit button, that it will create some sort of issue regarding, people who put out tweets and then delete them or edit them. And then there's like this, oh, I didn't say that. And then they edited it. But there is some interesting, this everyday astronaut person I thought brought up an interesting point. And Elon seemed to think so as well. Under two conditions, it's only available for a few minutes. So the edit button will only be available to 5 to 10 minutes. And when an edit is made, there's a small link that shows the edit. This keeps a public record, but allows the tweeter the ability to fix a simple mistake and not re-notify their followers with a new tweet. This is what I love. I'm all on board with this. And Elon says that sounds reasonable. So for me, somebody who tweets a lot, who puts a lot of tweeters out in the Twitter space, I would love to just be like, oh shit, I made a typo. I just wanted to edit it real quick. And if it's within 5 to 10 minutes, that's perfect. Because I usually notice it as soon as I put it up. And I'm like, shit, I should have added something else. And so I'm on board with that. I think that's probably a good happy medium, a good compromise. And why doesn't Twitter do this already? Like they should, they should. And I think that that could be, it could be big. It could be big. Let me know. It should say post edited. It should say post edited from Ivan Broski. I think so. I think so as well. I mean, we see that on all the other ones, right? Even YouTube. You edit a comment on YouTube, it shows you that it was edited. And Facebook as well does the same thing. So like, it's not a big deal. Just give us an edit button. And if you want to make it timed, make it timed. But listen, that's a big deal, I think. I don't know. I was excited because I had just talked about those two things, and over the last 24 hours, this is exactly what happened. And so the other stuff that I had mentioned probably is going to take a while to come to fruition, especially from the growth side of things. But I got to tell you guys, we talked about it yesterday. I said I may end up taking a position on Twitter, and I did it today. So I took a call position on Twitter. I bought a little bit higher than I probably wanted to, but with the news of him being appointed as a director, I was like, you know what? I got to be in. Yeah, it's probably chasing a little bit, but I think it goes much higher from where it's at. So I got June calls on this. So I have options on Twitter, $55 strike. So just barely out of the money, nothing too crazy there. They're 10 calls. So, dropped a cool 5 Gs on it, and we'll see where it goes. The expiration is not out until June. And I'm pretty pumped for it. So I think that you look at Twitter. Let's take a look at the stock right now. And obviously it's sold off because it's just reacting with the rest of the market. And it's like, figures. It's still green on the day though. Let's take a look at this. So here's the daily chart. This previously saw highs of $80.75. And that was before Elon was in the picture. Okay. So I'm not saying it's gone right back to 80 in any quick fashion. But the fact of the matter is that yesterday I was reluctant to buy it because I didn't know what was going to be happening with it. And today, once I saw that Elon was going to be on the board of directors, I was like, you know what? I'm in. And I may consider adding to this. I may get another options position on this, because I do think that Twitter is going to be in great hands now that Elon is making an impact here. So we'll see how it goes. I got 3 months. Got 3 months to see how it all shakes out. I'm pumped for it. 2 months. Sorry. I got 2 months to see how this all shakes out. So what's my plan? I'm going to, see if it holds above the 200-day moving average. That's going to be my first area that I watch for. Let's zoom in here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. That's right around $50, $51 a share, right where it's trading at right now. So if it holds up above this, I think that the momentum there could certainly be great. The RSI, however, is screaming. It's at 81%. So, of course, there's a lot of risk involved in owning it here. What I would love to see is maybe this cools off a little bit. If it does come back to 45, I'm in. I'm in even more. I'm going to be grabbing some more Twitter if it comes back down to 45. That is a previous support. And then I'll indicate, that the RSI is cooled off enough. I think that some of the profit taking will probably be done around that 45 area. we also have earnings as well. So I have two situations. If it comes down to 45, I'm going to be probably grabbing more. If it doesn't come back down to 45, but just kind of chills here, I'm going to stay in this position and then wait till earnings come out, and then I'll be able to kind of decide whether or not I want in on some more Twitter after the earnings come out. Maybe they talk a little bit more about what's going on with Elon. But yeah, it didn't almost. So we got some comments here. I want to. Elon watches my videos, says Shirley. That would be awesome if he did. Even if he just watched a minute of it, I'd be fine with that. Can you imagine Kanye West with the edit button? Yeah, no kidding. Elon loves Twitter and he wants that damn edit button. Yeah, I'm sure he does. There's probably a lot that I'm sure he wish he could have edited. This is a buying opportunity for Twitter then. I think so. Okay. Good stuff. All right. So let's come back here and I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm thinking about for my top 5 stocks for April. Now, I've kind of skipped this. I was doing it for a while. I was putting out top stocks that I thought would move throughout the month, and obviously some of the drama, I don't want to say drama, that's a poor choice of words, but with some of the happenings going on with Fat Man Zoom and everything else, I've been kind of struggling, and I'm just being totally candid with you guys, struggling on trying to come up with ways to create to make creative content. And I know that you guys really like the top stocks for the month, so I'm bringing it back. I took a 2.5 month hiatus on that. I haven't put a top stocks for the month out since December, if you guys recall. So I'm taking it back. The last top stock video I guess I made was probably for the year. Put it out in January, and we're still only 1 quarter into the year, and those are doing okay, all things considered. So we have a lot to kind of see where that goes, where that plays out. But these are stocks that I think are actually going to make some strong moves. Now, to preface this, I think that there's going to be some really good opportunities here, and they're not all at the bottom, but they're all not all at the top. And some of them, or one of them is pretty close to the top, but I think that there's going to be a case where you could buy high and sell higher in this particular one. So let's get on to it. So my first one is going to be, I have my list here. Interestingly enough, is Meta Platforms. So Facebook. All right, let's just call it Facebook because it's easier to call it Facebook. Appreciate it, Jeff. Thanks so much. I'm glad you're liking it so far. So let's go and take a look at the chart real quick, and I can kind of give you some reasonings as to why I think Meta is going to be one to watch for throughout the month of April. Now, you can see that this has had a hell of a bounce from 185 lows, 185.82. This has had 4 red days, today being one of those, since March 15th. 4 red days since March 15th. And you might be asking yourself, did I miss the boat? In my opinion, I don't think so. This is the cheapest of the FANG names. And while it's had a great move recently, it's still got room to run. Sure, it's had some issues to deal with when it comes to some of the earnings and how it's been impacted with Apple's level of security and all of that. I think that there's certainly cause for concern. But this company is bringing in $40 billion of free cash flow a year, which is absolutely wild. And it trades at just 18 times next year's earnings. This is something that I think is still very cheap from a fundamental standpoint. We look at price to sales as well, and that's trading at 5 times sales, which is still very, very low, especially when you compare it to some of the other FANG stocks. And in an environment like this, you're already seeing a lot of rotation into FANGs. I mean, we look at Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all of them. They've all made significant moves. Even Netflix has. But out of them, fundamentally, this is the cheapest one. So I think that the potential for this to continue to move up is very high. This closed over the 50-day moving average for the first time since, I'm talking closed over the 50-day moving average for the first time since January. And so I think that there's a lot of momentum behind this. Now, even and despite the bounce that it's had, we're looking at RSI in the 50s. So it's not even close to being overbought, in my opinion, either. So it's technically sound, it's fundamentally sound, and in an environment where we're seeing higher interest rates and the Fed doing its thing, and the FANGs have really started to see some growth here, despite interest rates and all of that all of that talk, I think that there's a lot of potential here for Meta to go up. We have a huge gap that needs to be filled up into the 290s, and I think that if we see the momentum continue here, that run to 290 could be significant. Remember, we also have earnings coming out for Facebook at the end of the month as well. So last week in April is when we should likely see that take place. So that's my first one. I think that Facebook is going to be a good one to own for the month of April. I love how Don and I are on the same page. I like this one. He said, this is my biggest position. Yes, I think that. Now, just full disclosure, I did have Facebook. I ended up closing out of it because my options calls were expiring. It just wasn't going to be worth it for me to hang on to this. So I am looking to potentially re-enter into Facebook. So I'm going to be putting my money where my mouth is, most likely with one or two of these stocks on this list. And I think Facebook's going to be one of those. So I like that one. Next one is going to be American Express. And this one is this is the one I was kind of referring to that I think could be argued that, well, we're not that far off of all-time highs. The all-time high was at 199.55. We have 185.40 is where it closed at today. So a relatively decent correction. Obviously it came screaming down to 155, and it's already had a really decent bounce. However, American Express is going to benefit from the travel boom. Business travel is still ramping back up. For 2021, net revenue soared 30% to just 12.1 billion. The company had stated there was record card member spending during 2021. And I think that continues into 2022 as well. I mean, we're still very much into high demand. And I think if you are traveling, one of the best credit cards to own is an American Express card. I challenge anybody to tell me otherwise. Meanwhile, net income rose 20% to 1.7 billion in 2021 as well. And we'll have to see how that shakes out for their next earnings that are going to be coming up, I believe, this month as well. Yes. Third week in April is when we're going to see that. This is also cheap as well on the fundamental side. This is trading at 14 times next year's earnings. 14 times. Let me just come back here. Yeah. So I'm sorry. Let me back up. 19 times. It's still very cheap. 19 times next year's earnings, trading at just 3 times sales. So this is still very cheap in my opinion, especially when you compare it to some of the other credit cards, Visa, MasterCard. American Express is doing extremely well. Now, from the chart, from a chart perspective, I like the fact that it's been holding above the 50-day moving average. Obviously, we saw how it tanked. And with the Fed meeting minutes coming out tomorrow, I'm sure there's going to be some potentially continued selling, especially if the overall market is not happy with what they're going to be hearing tomorrow from those Fed meeting minutes. That's all up in the air, of course. But if we do see a sell-off, in my opinion, I still think this is a really good opportunity for something like an American Express. I've been very vocal about how I think travel is going to be absolutely insane for the summertime, which I think bodes well for something like an American Express that I would expect that their outlook should be good when they report earnings later in the month. So 50-day moving average is holding above there. I like it. We're not anywhere near oversold conditions or anything like that. And this looks pretty good. I'm seeing a potential support if by some chance we see a sell-off tomorrow, maybe around 177. So keep that area on watch. In my opinion, I think that's going to be an important area to spot out. So here you go, 177 thereabouts. Going to be a spot there. We also have resistance here at around 194. So that's going to be another spot to watch as well. So I'll mark that there for you so you guys can get a pretty good visual. So I like those areas to watch for support and resistance. Of course, if it holds that 50-day, I think that it would indicate how strong this actually still is. So I like it. That's American Express. Next, we have Airbnb. And, just to kind of go along with the travel boom that I'm expecting, earnings aren't going to be until May, but I think that we could see a potential run up into that. It's been a stingy resistance here at 176. This is one that I would say, the first two were still cheap from a fundamental standpoint, right? But this is still pretty high. This is kind of expensive from a PE standpoint. This is trading at, what did I have it at? It was like 100 times next year's earnings. Yeah, 128 times next year's earnings. So it's high, right? The multiple is high. So obviously this is probably going to be very sensitive to rate hikes and what have you because of the multiple being high. The one thing that it does have going for it is that it's profitable. they're going to continue to make money, and I think that they have the ability to grow into that type of valuation, especially with some of the spikes that we've been seeing in travel. You guys, I'm sure maybe you've seen the headlines. If you haven't, Carnival Cruise Line had a record last couple of weeks of bookings. That's Carnival Cruise Line, a record, not pre-pandemic levels, a record. Let me repeat that. The last couple of weeks, Carnival Cruise Line had a record number of bookings, and that's the cruises. This isn't just isolated to the cruises, folks. This is travel everywhere. I mean, go try to find yourself an Airbnb and tell me how hard of a time you're going to be having with it. I think Airbnb is going to continue to be one to own. I've owned it. I do own it. I have a decent amount here in the Own the Chaos portfolio, which again, you can go check out if you hit the join button next to subscribe, or go to ownthechaos.com. Would love to have you guys over there. And I think Airbnb is going to continue to be one to own. Now, from a technical standpoint, still not anywhere near overbought situation or oversold, just kind of hanging out in the middle here. I like support that's hanging around 164. I just mentioned about how it's been really struggling here around 177 as a resistance. So keep an eye on that. Well above the 250-day, that looks strong there. I think that those are going to be two areas to watch. If it breaks over 177, I don't see how there's much stopping this from a technical standpoint to $200 a share. I like Airbnb. Next one's going to be Home Depot. Now, this is interesting, right? Because I've talked about travel a lot, and I've talked about things that were undervalued. Do you guys remember, before I pull up this chart, do you guys remember how crazy that Home Depot moved over the pandemic and over, really in 2021 as well, because of demand, right? There's a lot of people that were excited about Home Depot, Lowe's, the home builders in general, because of the housing boom. Guys, mortgage rates went up to 5% today. First time we've seen that in quite some time. So there is a lot of concern here. And we've seen Home Depot sell off because of the potential interest rates going up and demand slowing. However, I don't think that it really impacts Home Depot all that much, just because we're getting into a decent time of the year. From a cyclical standpoint, Home Depot certainly is one to go after. Also, it's a defensive play. We look at Home Depot right now, it's sitting at 304, which is off of its 298 low recently. And 298 is actually a pretty interesting spot. Let's break this out. So it went all the way up to $420 a share. Now came back down and tested essentially a double bottom around 298. Let's just call it $300. And you can see how it tested that area around June of last year. We're pretty darn close to June of last year, right? So cyclically, I think that this is a good one to own. Also, it's come down to a reasonable valuation. We're trading at 19 times next year's earnings. Price of sales is at 2. So this is attractive again. I didn't like it up here at 420. I like it now. I mean, this was a top performer in the Dow last year, and I think it could potentially be a top performer in the Dow in the second half of this year. So this not only is one that I think is worth watching for April, but I think it's worth watching for the remainder of the year. I think you can get into Home Depot here and be happy about it. Again, of course, not financial advice, but this is definitely one worth keeping an eye on. And, make the argument why you don't think Home Depot is a good buy here. We'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Jeff Ponica says they have a 2.49% dividend as well. Yamit says it needs to go down lower, 245 to 250 to be fair value at this point. Interesting. I wonder if those numbers that I had laid out as far as forward earnings are concerned, maybe makes you think a little bit more about that. Because, I mean, what's it got to get to? 10 times? I think that's what it would be. 8 times next year's earnings. I don't know if Home Depot's ever traded that low. I could be wrong, but that's Home Depot. Next one is going to be Transocean. Now, Transocean, if you guys aren't familiar with it, this is actually a cheap one for you guys who just look at the share price. If you've looked at some of the other ones that I put up, the share price might not be attractive to those who are looking at something a little bit lower. They want to get a bunch of shares, and I understand. But Transocean is definitely one to take a look at. I like Transocean. It's an energy play. I just got done telling you about how oil's still over $100 a barrel. WTI crude is, and Brent crude is, of course, well over $100 a barrel. And this is interesting. I talked to you last week, if you guys were a part of the Thursday stream, about how Joe Biden and the White House we're planning on and are doing a release of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, or the SPR, to the tune of 1 million barrels a day for the next 180 days. That's 100 million barrels a day that they're going to be releasing. And I had mentioned that that is not going to do anything for the price of oil, and it's not going to solve the problem. And in fact, I think it could exacerbate the issue if they don't come up with a solution between now and then. Today, news came out that the U.S. is looking to import more Canadian oil, which I don't know is going to happen. And I think really the solution here is going to be more exploration here in the U.S. I think that's what it's going to come down to. They're going to paint themselves into a corner here, in my opinion. And like I had mentioned before, with sanctions going on in the EU and the US regarding Russian oil, I just don't see how we solve the supply problem when it comes to the amount of demand that we're seeing. The stocks that I laid out before you, a lot of them are revolving around travel. Travel is going to require a lot more oil consumption. And I don't think 1 million barrels a day for 6 months is going to be the answer here. Not only that, but you're going to have to refill that SPR at some point, which requires more oil, which requires more exploration, which requires more drilling. And that's where Transocean comes in. So their exploration and drilling company, offshore primarily, I think there's a lot of positive things to look at here. Again, this is super cheap. Price of sales at one time, just basically in line. So there's no real multiple here. And I think this is cheap. This has the potential, in my opinion, to probably double from here, just given where we're at. Market cap is at, $3 billion. That's it for Transocean. So I really like this. There's been a lot of trading activity on this, a lot of options calls out into June. Have been seeing some big old whales come in to scoop up some Transocean. If you don't like Transocean, then consider looking at something like a Halliburton. Still in the same space, but Halliburton, I think, is also one that I think is worth taking a look at. The only reason I bring it up is because I knew a lot of people were going to cry about this hitting all-time or 52-week highs today, even though it had a little bit of a pullback. But when you consider how it's lagging the rest of energy, Halliburton is still stupid cheap. It's trading at where is it at? 21 times next year's earnings. 21 times next year's earnings. That's crazy. I think that Halliburton's going to continue to move up, especially as oil continues to move up. Their break even on price per barrel, I think, is somewhere around $35 or $40. So you can imagine the kind of money that they're making when oil is up $100 plus. So I think that even though this has made the move, this is going to be another instance in which you could buy high and buy higher, buy high and sell higher, in my opinion. We look at this, right? And last time we saw oil at these levels, Halliburton was trading at $57, $60 a share. This isn't to say that it's going straight to that number, but if oil remains here, which I strongly believe that it will, and it may even be higher from here 5 to 6 months from now, I think Halliburton actually will potentially come to these levels. I mean, it's one of those things where it's really lagging stocks like ExxonMobil and Chevron, for example. You've seen a lot of people flock to those bigger companies, and they have really great earnings yields as well. I'm sorry, dividend yields as well. So you could really get into anything energy related and probably make money. I'm just trying to point out the biggest opportunities in that space. And I really like these two stocks in general. So those are your 5 stocks that I think are going to be worth watching in April. Would love to get your guys' thoughts on that. And let me know in the comments. And I'm going to go ahead and sift through some of those right now and see what you guys think. So Savvy Money Show says, I like Home Depot. Only issue was the leaflet they were passing out about privilege. I didn't see that. Jeff says, paint in a corner, good analogy. I would call it shoot themselves in the foot. Yeah, I mean, we've seen the SPR play before, right? We saw how in December where they released what 30 million barrels at one clip, and it didn't solve a damn thing. I mean, the U.S. goes through around 20 to 30 million barrels a day, and it didn't really do much for anybody. Demand is still ridiculously high. It's going to continue to be ridiculously high, especially now that we're not leveraging Russia for oil. Yemet says, looked at the balance sheet in reference to Home Depot. Growth is still a problem now. maybe I don't want to disagree with you. I think that we'll actually find that out when earnings come out, and then maybe we can have a stronger opinion on that. But there's a possibility that maybe that takes place. And to your point, our Restoration Hardware came out and talked about that, right? Or Restoration Hardware said in their latest earnings release about how they see a slowing of growth. And Restoration Hardware was a great stock to play when housing was going off, and it moved right along with Lowe's and Home Depot, and we've seen where Restoration Hardware has moved to. I just think that at this point it's way oversold. It's come back down to reasonable levels. I'm not saying that there isn't headwinds for something like a Home Depot. I'm just looking at the chart and I'm thinking to myself, this seems like a reasonable area. We've seen the bottom there, and I would be surprised if we broke below that. If we do, however, you might be on to something. If it breaks below that $300 mark and sustains that break, then yeah, I think that there's a possibility that 250, 245 could certainly be on the table. But for right now, it still looks technically good, and I really like those levels on Home Depot. Save trading was halted. We can take a look at that. I think that there was some sort of takeover or buyout or what have you. Yeah, let's take a look at that right now. I don't see any other comments yet that I'm going to be pulling up. Let's take a look at this. So interesting note here on Spirit Airlines, not to be confused with Spirit Air Systems. Stock's up 22% today. There's a bid from JetBlue. This was after hours, right? Let me take a look at this. Let's pull this up. I'll bring this over here so you guys can see it. Spirit Airlines is up 22%. Jumped more than 22% before being halted near close Tuesday after New York Times reported that JetBlue Airways has made a $3.6 billion bid for the ultra-low-cost carrier. The report cited 3 people with knowledge about the offer, and Spirit also has Spirit and also ultra-low-cost Frontier Group announced a merger in February, a deal that would create U.S.'s largest budget airline, according to the Times. So that's why that's up a ton today. You can see that it has made an absolute monster move. Still not quite. I mean, if you feel like you missed the boat, you might not have. I mean, this is the weekly chart. Let's come back out to the daily. Obviously, you can see a big giant boner candle from today's trading, but didn't quite get back up over that 2830 resistance. Maybe it continues tomorrow, but interesting note there on Spirit. Now, this is a rumor still. This is just something that was released by the New York Times. There's nothing official on this, so obviously consider the risk going into it here. But there's potential that maybe this goes higher. $3.1 billion. Where's the market cap on this? 2.92. So right in line there. If it is, in fact, 3.1, it may not go much higher than this. It might just sustain in this area, but it'll definitely be worth watching going into tomorrow. And if we actually get any kind of confirmation that JetBlue is looking to buy them out. So very interesting stuff there on the consolidation front. Steve Jackson says the last 10 minutes of the close, or going into the close. So yeah, good stuff on Spirit. Good for them. Congrats to anybody who was in on that. Really nice move there. Jeff says I would go into JetBlue, and JetBlue's pretty cheap. Last I checked, from a stock price perspective. Yeah, look at this. The stock sold off. JetBlue might be the option here. This happens all the time. The company that looks to buy another company sells off so many times because investors think that they're overpaying for it. But look, I just showed you the market cap on Spirit Airlines. Maybe this could be an opportunity. I like JetBlue at 13. If it comes and holds at the 13 level, that could be an area to watch. 13 flat. That could be a spot to watch. For sure. All right. Good stuff today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Tomorrow we have a really special show. Hopefully Friday we'll be back. I haven't checked in with him yet, but usually Thursdays not tomorrow. Thursday we have a special show. Usually Thursdays we have Freddie on. Fat Man Zoom's been trying to come on Thursdays. We'll see if he's able to make an appearance. So already a big day, right? We have Tom Nash also coming in. If you guys aren't familiar with Tom Nash, he's a huge creator in this space, in the investing world. Chances are you probably know who he is, but he's going to be a guest on the show on Thursday, and I'm super pumped. So if you're watching this at a later date, or if you want to watch this once, or if you want to comment once I sign off here, let me know what you guys want to hear from Tom. Questions, comments. I want to hear it all because this is going to be a big show for me. One of the biggest creator that I've had on the show, which I'm super pumped for. So great guy. I'm a big fan of Tom, and I'm looking forward to it. So let me know what you guys think. I'll continue to ramp this up and build excitement as we get closer to Thursday, but I'm super pumped for it. So guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. If you haven't checked out the join button, make sure you do so. I put out a watch list for y'all every single day, every morning before the market opens. 5 stocks, fundamental and technical analysis, stocks that I think that are going to be worth watching that day. If you guys are interested in that and you want to help support the channel, everything you see behind you, hit that join button next to subscribe, become a Chaos crew member today, or you can go to onlychaos.com as well and sign up there. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, I'll see you all later. Bye.